extraction. So I had to go through the data set and tell me what I understood from the data, because data is the biggest asset of any industry. So you have to make an insight and analyze the trends based on what they wanted me during the interview.
Cool. My honestly biggest challenge in applying was doing the actual applying. Sometimes it's very discouraging to make 200, 300 applications. You maybe get a couple of interviews, right? So for me, it was definitely the actual filling out of the form and not wanting to chop my arm off, not do it anymore, right? That's mainly my challenge. The actual interview itself was super pleasant, if anything, for General Dynamics. There was a technical aspect. It was pretty much tailored, so it was quite nice, really. But the initial step was the more rough time.
Yeah, no, I would say the same thing. Like, be tenacious when you're applying. Like, just keep on applying. It's a difficult process, but you just got to keep going, and one will eventually hit. And I'd also say to it's hard without too much experience, but you can cater your resume to specific roles. So depending on the role and your experience, you can even make personal projects to add on to potentially, describe that you have certain experiences catering to that specific role. And I think, yeah, that's about it.
I would say the same thing as Yarrow. I found constantly applying pretty difficult, staying motivated, but it is important to stay motivated. Everyone starts off with no experience, but eventually you'll get there. You just have to keep on going.
I also agree with what Yarrow said. It's just really redundant, and I do agree with tailoring it to the job. Like, I would edit some of the skills I had on it if they were emphasizing one specific skill for the application. Especially our first co-op, when we have it in the summer, you're competing with people in fourth year and you don't have as much experience, so it's scary, but you should still apply even if your skills don't 100% match the skills on there, because in internship specifically, you're going to learn, so they know you won't have everything. And then the second way of application process that I've had was with conferences and networking, which is how I got my last two internships. And then the difficulty with that is just, speaking to new people, and you have to present yourself and be confident with yourself as well too. So my advice for that and what I did was just faking it till you make it. Just having the confidence in yourself.
Awesome. And speaking about networking, the next question is, what role did networking play in your internship search? And do you have any tips for students looking to make any meaningful connections in the tech industry? Oh, sorry.
So like I said, my last internships at Ubisoft I got from networking. And in this day and age, networking plays a big role in getting jobs. It's not just, finishing your undergrad. And it's a great way because people are seeing you in your face instead of just seeing an application online. It can be really nerve-wracking, especially to when I went up, I didn't have all of the skills that they wanted for it, some of the languages I hadn't done, but they want to see your motivation to learn, because once again, in an internship, you're not expected to know everything. Even in a job, you're not expected to know everything when you join the job. So once again, faking it till you make it and just being confident in yourself. And for me personally, public speaking, I'm okay with it, but I know for some people that's not a skill that they're as comfortable with, but it's a huge skill in networking and meeting new people. So yeah.
For me, my networking was not really at conferences, but more of with my friends. I've gotten my first experience from my friend Toby in the crowd. He recommended me to a job that uOttaHack posting that uOttaHack had. And then Venetia recommended me to Ubisoft. She gave me the email to a recruiter, and then I just went through the process. And your whole community is your network. I've even talked to my next door neighbor she has a brother who's in IT at D&D. So that was a network connection for me too. So it's just to, ask around, look everywhere, and there's a community for you.
I actually thought about the question differently. I assume that like you eventually do get a job, networking is still as important. It's really important to network within the position, whatever you get, and finding really just someone that you're comfortable speaking to and you're comfortable learning from. I can't even like tell you how much like knowledge I extracted from just like people, whether even co-op students or 20 years experience like workers. It's just so useful to network within a big corporation or a small one or a school, learning from different people's different backgrounds. And yeah, honestly, like it's a difficult thing to say to do. Um, Taking the action itself and networking was difficult, but I hope that you guys all after like taking hard information from us will hopefully put it into play. Yeah.
Yeah, great point is that networking doesn't just go away. Just get your first internship and now shut up. Definitely keep talking to people around you. I know that you're all gonna hate this, but please make friends in your classes, right? Like almost every opportunity that you will not get by just applying online through the career portal. You will 100% get it by a friend recommendation, by a professional recommendation, by chatting to somebody that's in the field that you want to be in, right? Like who here has spoken to a recruiter within the last 2 months? Please raise your hands. Yeah, see, this is weak. What is this? What is this? Everybody's hand should be up. Everybody should be, whether it's bothering them on LinkedIn, whether it's sending them emails, please reach out. It's their job. You're not actually bothering them. You are making their job easier for them. You're making your job easier for you. Because a lot of you, I'll say all of you, have kind of an uncovered ability, right? So please show it off. That's what networking is for.
Yeah, I do agree. And not just with recruiters, I would also suggest with your fellow professors. They're honestly, they're bored. They want someone to just come up to them and ask, hey, what are the recent research topics? What are the research priority areas right now in the industry? So, you build those relationships, build those bridges with your professors as well, and it might get you a long way ahead.
Those are really good, guys. You guys need. But I do want to stress the importance on networking, not just above you, but like horizontally. So with your classmates and everything, don't be shy when you're in your classes. Like actually talk to people, because when you graduate, those are gonna be all the other professionals workers in your field. But anyways, next question.
Whatever you do, don't network down. Just kidding.
Look down on people. So can you guys share any advice on how to effectively leverage online platforms like LinkedIn or GitHub to showcase your skills and experiences to employers? I'll start with Harish this time.
So for me, Kaggle was my biggest platform for recruiting. They went to my profile and searched for all the competitions I had been there for, all the notebooks that I had uploaded and all the data sets that I had uploaded, and they asked me questions about what each of those specific notebooks that I publish. And
Yeah, definitely make your LinkedIn presentable, please. Have a photo of you. Have some experience on there, even if it's not necessarily relevant, right? Like if you volunteered for something and it's tech related, please put that on there. Please link your GitHub in your LinkedIn as well, even if your GitHub sucks as well. Mine definitely does. I am more of a LinkedIn warrior, but really, it plays a pretty big role, especially, like I said, when you're reaching out to recruiters. They don't want to see that lovely incognito face. They want to see you, right? They want to see who you are. They want to read things about you so that they can kind of gauge an idea of what is kind of best for you in terms of career, just from your profile, right? You get a little excited when you see, oh, this person viewed my profile. Please make it presentable.
I'm gonna be real. My GitHub kind of sucks. But you know, it looks kind of presentable. Put your projects on your GitHub. I know in school you guys have to do projects, so make sure to put that on your GitHub. I have so many projects just on my GitHub, and it looks honestly, you know, presentable. Was it a project that I didn't really care too much about and put a little bit of effort in? Well, yeah, a little bit. Sometimes it's like that. But at the end of the day, kind of just make sure, at least for, I guess, stuff like socials, make it more presentable, pretty much. And also, one thing to note, as much as social is important, going back to the previous question, networking, talking in person, face to face, that will always prevail. Yeah.
I would say the same thing. Yes, it's very important to keep your LinkedIn up to date, your GitHub up to date. I could be better at that myself too. But yeah.
I can't stress enough, like you need to have a LinkedIn picture because people will not talk to you if you don't have a picture. And I have people around me who didn't have pictures before too, and it like you need to have a picture on your LinkedIn. I actually made my LinkedIn kind of late after my first co-op because honestly, just making it stressed me out a bit. But it's really important. Is it ringing the mic?
Yeah.
What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Well, LinkedIn's really important. I made mine kind of late, like after my second internship. No, after my first one. And you can have so many, like even job opportunities on LinkedIn. There's so many available on there. So it's really important to have the LinkedIn. I can't speak much on the GitHub because yes, I have school projects on it, but it's actually really messy. I still do put it on my resume. But yeah, and also when you go to conferences and you're talking to recruiters, they're going to give you their LinkedIn and they say, hey, reach out to me on LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn, can't really reach out to them. So yeah.
Okay, so our next question is, can you share any specific resources like books or websites or an opportunity like a conference or anything that you went to that helped you in your journey to secure an internship?
So I don't know the exact acronym of the conference that I went to, but it's for women in computer science who speak French. And I actually got it through an email from the University of Ottawa. And a lot of my friends thought it was a scam because it was just very random. And it was only 8 of us that went. But just also being in a conference surrounded by women, it was not as intimidating because that as a woman in comp sci, it can be really intimidating being surrounded by a bunch of men, to be honest. So just having an environment of women and then all these recruiters to talk to and then also the presentations that they had. It was in Montreal, I should specify that as well. And it happens in June. If you search on Google like Journée Informatique pour les Femmes, you can come up to me after too if you want the exact name. I have to search it up on my phone, but it's a very valuable conference. And just finding any conferences that are happening around in Ottawa just to speak to people, yeah, I think it's beneficial.
Something that helped me find my second internship was FSWEB. It's a government program that helps students get connected to jobs. And pretty much you just put in your resume and then it automatically matches you over time to any jobs that match your resume. So it pretty much does a lot of the work for you. And yeah, it was really helpful. So I'd recommend everyone to do that.
For a tool, I used to build my resume over Leave. It's a pretty nice tool. Pretty much you write your resume in LaTeX, and that way it kind of, or at least like automatic like kind of resume parsers can parse through it a lot more simply and easily. I don't know if you guys know about it, but Overleaf, it's pretty useful.
I was gonna say, for resources, FSWEB is something you mentioned that I didn't think of at all, and that's honestly, FSWEB is probably better than the co-op office right now. For those of you who just got their co-op open, kind of, I'm sure you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but FSWEB is awesome. We kind of glossed over LinkedIn. That's really where you're gonna, make most of your connections. For tools, only really great for making your resume. Please make your resume simple in the sense that you want it to be easily translatable to a text file. So you don't want any fancy images, you don't want any fancy characters, you don't want to make it in Figma or something. But I'm sure some of you can draw amazing things on your resume, but just keep it nice and simple. Make sure that it's transferable to the machine that's probably going to read it.
Read a lot of books. That's what my biggest advice would be. I've read books with Scikit-learn or ALE, and just browse around various online platforms like Hugging Face. The recruiters are definitely going to ask you about Hugging Face and what have you learned, especially if you want jobs in, let's say, deep learning or machine learning background, right? So yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is, what was one project or task that you worked on during your internship that had a significant impact on your growth as a developer or engineer? I'll start with Krish.
So at NRC, we incorporated RAGs, right? So they're basically retrieval augmented generation. So we all know that large language models, especially something like ChatGPT, faces hallucinations. So it's basically what it means is if you ask it for a response, it will give you some random nonsense. But to essentially address those problems, you use a database. So it's called a vector store. So you do use that vector database to link it with the LLM API calls that you use, which basically it enhances your response and avoids the problems for hallucinations. This is one of the biggest challenges that I was able to work on, and it really helped me grow as a deep learning researcher.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have to reread the question quickly because I was thinking about something else. But we will take questions at the end from the audience, so keep them stowed away. I would say that my biggest project was actually working on uOttaHack because that was my first real experience doing anything. I was the co-director of uOttaHack for 2 years, and I think that taught me more than almost anything so far, right? Because it's a kind of a unique role where you get put in a leadership position, but you're still a child. I think I was 18 years old when I was co-director, and you can tell how mature I am now. Can you imagine 2.5 years ago, right? Working on that was the biggest boost ever. So I will always be for organizing things like this, for volunteering, for getting involved in extracurriculars. Go join IEEE, go join ESS, CSSA, all things like that.
I would say for me, it's working at Morgan Stanley. I worked as a full stack developer, so I made this full stack app. And I remember when it was first pitched to me, I had no idea what anyone was talking about, like the technologies used, even like what it was for. And going from that to actually developing it within 4 months, even if it wasn't fully completed. But the fact that you went from something so vague and kind of nebulous to kind of figuring out requirements and keep on talking with people, keep on asking questions, that really kind of made me realize that a work environment is one where, it's okay to actually be confused. It's okay to not understand everything, and it's okay to ask questions whenever you want. Yeah.
For me, I think what helped with my growth is constantly testing my work and making sure that it's working as expected and seeing where I tend to make certain mistakes. And when you're constantly going through and reviewing your stuff, you will see where you can improve. So yeah.
So at my second internship at Fisheries and Oceans Canada, we were all working on this application, and it's still being worked on right now, and it was in Scrum. So every 2 weeks there would be the presentation to the clients. And it was my first time working in Scrum. It was my first time working as a full stack developer. And when we were done our pitches, there were some other side tasks, and there was a bunch of UI tasks that I would do. And then the UI UX developer came up to me and she's like, "Oh, I noticed you've been doing a lot of those. Can we sit down together and tackle a bunch of them?" I'm still friends with her to this day. And that really shaped me as a developer in the workplace for Ubisoft as well. And that was one quality they really liked, especially as a tools programmer at Ubisoft. A bunch of people on your team are working on different tools, but you're still collaborating and working together. So having that ability to go to other people on the team and working together, asking questions, and once you're done your task, working on side tasks, just the flexibility and multitasking of it all. Yeah, it shaped me for my career.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so next question is, how did your internship help you refine your career goals? Did it confirm your interest in a specific area of tech or make you rethink your path? Let's start with Nisha.
So being a full stack developer at my second internship, it did make me realize that I do really like front end. And then working at Ubisoft, it made me appreciate both the front end and the back end, because initially I was like, okay, maybe I just want to do front end. But having that back end experience at Ubisoft, it made me like it as well. And the work environment at my internships, very different. At my first internship, it was fully remote, so we didn't really see each other much, and we only had one meeting a week. But my second internship, it was with the government, and I did make some friends here and there, but it was most people were there on my, every team is different. Most people were there to work and go home, which is so fair. Working at Ubisoft in a video game industry, I mean, the video game industry itself, I mean, it's entertainment. So everyone there is like talking to each other, working together. Also, just having that lively environment makes it easier for you to go and talk to other people to ask questions, because during your internship, you should not be afraid to ask questions and go around. So having the different work environments made me realize that I do prefer the environment where it's more lively and everyone's talking to each other, and yeah.
I would say the same thing as Venetia. At my second internship at the Department of National Defense, they pretty much stuck us in cubicles, and it's just not the best work environment. Like, it was fine, but it was just it was very professional, and I didn't enjoy that part of it. But Ubisoft was really nice because honestly, going to work was fun. There were a lot of fun events. So that's the kind of company I'd want to work at.
Yeah, you're all really early in your careers. If I give you advice, I'd say explore, try as many different things as you can. I said I did an internship in this building. It was a research internship. I hated it. I did not like. I'm so sorry, Irish. I don't like research. But that's why I'm saying try to do as many different things as you can. I did really like Morgan Stanley. I like the financial part of it. And I like how that learning about finance within the company also helped me learn about personal finance and something I didn't really know about before, tax returns, all that stuff. But yeah.
I think that something that you will all learn as you move forward is that things normally take way longer than you think they do. There's almost always, you'll get into your first, second internship, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make that. And then you're going to spend your entire term working on one main thing. And don't be discouraged by that, because that's something that I did for 4 months is I worked on one thing, and having completed that was such a big relief, right? Even if it is just one thing that you're working on, even if it is progressing slower than you would have liked it to, kind of just bear with it. Enjoy the process.
Yeah, I didn't just rethink my path. NRC made me rethink my life. So I did not think I would even think about doing a PhD, but after doing some research work at NRC with my supervisors, it made me realize that this is the right path for me, and each have their own opinion, right? So you know what you want once you are into it. And believe me, I've done a lot of dashboarding. I've worked at Capgemini for 2 years before coming to Canada. So I have worked with Excels, with VBAs, and after a certain time, gets monotonous. So you want to be at the forefront of the latest advancements, right? You want to be at the forefront of the research that's going on in the industry.
Okay, so our next question is, can you share any tips for standing out during the application process? What did you do to make your application catch the attention of recruiters? I'll start with Harsh.
My application process had a Kaggle competition, so that itself was the pinnacle. So they had like around 3,000 or 4,000 applicants, and you had to be in the top 10% to even be in the to even get your resume shortlisted. So I was one of those lucky candidates to have that.
Yeah, I would say if you're meeting a recruiter in person to talk, they're you kind of talk circles around them because the stereotype of computer science software eng kids being kind of antisocial. That's something that helped me for sure during my interview process was the fact that I was just able to yap. Honestly, it's a shockingly useful skill. Just be able to talk concisely, be able to talk clearly, be able to explain your goals and what you want to do. I think that that's really the way to stand out from an application.
Honestly, yeah, I don't really have too much to add, so I think I'll pass it on.
I think a way I stood out in applications was my extracurriculars, being in the Computer Science Student Association. It just showed the recruiters or the interviewers that you could be social and not like, yeah.
So I have three things and they've kind of been repeated. The first one is Overleaf, the tool that Yasin mentioned. Yeah, but the tool that Yasin mentioned, Overleaf, once I started using that tool for my resume, I got more responses back because it's just so easy to use and it makes your resume nice and clean. So that's the first one. The second one is, like Yara mentioned, the soft skills and yapping. Like, it's so valuable in this industry because comp sci, the stereotype is that like we don't yap, but we have yappers out there. I yap all the time and they love it. Like, they really do. In the interview, even when you're working with the team, like, you got to show your soft skills because that also applies to your work when you're talking to teams and doing presentations. And the third one ties into the soft skills, but your personality. Like, don't, like, obviously be professional, but you can talk about your interests and stuff outside of work that you like as well. And you maybe bond on that with someone in the interview call. So it's important to show your personality and not pretend to be someone you're not, as cheesy as that sounds.
Okay, so that's all the questions that I have. Now I'm gonna open the floor to you guys. If you guys just want to raise your hand if you have a question to ask any of our interns. So
I'm a first year software engineering student. And since you guys have more experience than me, and you guys are farther into your academic journey than me, if I were to ask you about your path and what you would change, like if you were to reflect on your path, what would you change? What would you do differently? That way I can learn from your mistakes.
Go into welding? No, but in all seriousness, the mistake that I made in my first year was I didn't apply enough to places. So you're gonna find out very soon as you begin applying through your co-op portal that there are so many other people applying. So please apply and keep a tracker. That's something I didn't do first year either. I didn't keep a tracker. I just kind of willy-nilly whatever I found, whenever I found it. Oh, here, I'll get this job. I'm awesome. No.
Are you a co-op student with the school?
Yes.
Yeah. So one advice I'd say is don't only rely on the co-op portal because as the years go by, I feel like it's not as great anymore too. There's less and less jobs and everyone's applying to those jobs. So it's important to look around, make your LinkedIn profile if you haven't. And yeah, that's my advice for that.
Yeah, my advice would also be like burnout is a real thing. So make sure to, relax, enjoy your time. Don't try to spend all your time trying to add things to your resume. Make sure to go out and, enjoy yourself pretty much. But yeah, that's pretty much.
I'm pretty goal oriented. So if I were you, I would probably just set like a goal for how many applications you could send out in a day and then just try and hit that. And if you're feeling it, you might want to continue and add more.
Oh, also, if there's the option for a cover letter, always send one. I know they're annoying, but my first co-op round, I didn't do any, and you need to. My sister scolded me on it. Like, you need to make cover letters. So.
Okay. You in the back?
Easy for me. That's the only way I got this job.
The short answer is fuck no. But honestly, yeah, most of your lead code questions you'll have solved before, and then you'll kind of look at them again, and you'll be like, oh, I don't remember how to do this. Nobody will ever ask you a lead code hard on a second or first year internship round. If they do, they're just evil. But definitely study towards media, I would say.
Oh, did you want to add on to your question? Oh, I was gonna say my first two interviews, there was no tech questions with government at all. But for Ubisoft, it depends on the team because I know you had tech stuff that you had to like do and submit. Mine was tech questions, but then also with another interview I had with another company that I decided to stick with Ubisoft instead. It was just tech questions, but it was so many. Like it was like 12 or 13, and it was, if you guys know the data structures and algorithms class, it was basically that class. So like looking back at your notes is important as well. But yeah, it depends on the company.
Harish, are you an international student?
Yes, I am.
So what was like your process of getting into war? Like it must be complicated than the others, right?
It's pretty much the same.
You
All
have to
the
get your work permit and all.
yeah.
So how do you go about doing all that?
Just ask the international office at uOttaHack and they'll pretty much guide you with everything. They guide me with everything. And one thing I'll ask, if you are applying to government jobs, make sure you have very good, your background check is clear, first of all. So you need to have your police verification from your home country or whatever, because they do check it before the interview process.
Okay.
And so basically you have the option of the co-op navigator if you have a protected B clearance or a protected A clearance. So you need to just upload your police verification. That's it. And even the RCMP do that for you.
All right.
We still have a lingering question.
Yeah, you guys had first project for your everything, for your very first internship. Was it all first project that you're interviewing, or was it like about the fall?
For me personally, it was school projects. I'm not sure about everybody else, but
Mine was organizing uOttaHack. I didn't really have any big coding projects.
So you made the website, or?
Yeah, worked on the uOttaHack website.
I went into my second internship saying, like, this is what I mean that, like, this is what I mean by, like, if there's some skills that you've done a little bit too, you can say that, like, you've tackled in it. But even my last internship, I said I didn't do it, like, that last skill that they had, and they still hired me. For my second internship, I only had school projects. I did one project in school in HTML, never did HTML prior to that. Because as an intern, you're really going to learn. And also another thing with that is you can fully go through an internship with not doing much work. It's really up to you to wanting to gain those skills, and they want to see your eagerness to learn. So it's up to you to ask those questions. That's kind of a different question, but yeah, for me too, I didn't have any personal projects on mine, so.
Yeah.
What are wicked easy experiences that you use to set yourself apart from other people?
Join an exec team like uOttaHack or CSSA. They really like that.
Don't know if we'll accept you, but you're gonna apply.
Yeah, that's just me. But those are really, really solid points. Please do extracurriculars. Find leadership opportunities wherever you can, even if it's not tech related. If you're the president of your own, I don't know, underwater basket weaving club, right? Just please do something outside of school, because you can have pretty good grades and not be considered because you're not a standout, right? There's plenty of people with good grades.
You.
So, as a first year CS, how do you guys feel about, like, let's back up with worst case scenario, like unpaid? Yes. Go ahead.
You wanna go first?
No, go ahead.
I would still do a paid internship to be honest, but my first internship at CRA didn't have barely any code. Like it had barely any coding in it, but just having that first job on your resume that's still like tech related helps. And I would say it's better to do that with like FSWEB instead of doing an unpaid internship, unless the unpaid internship is like some crazy company like Google or something and you're doing some really cool tech stuff, then of course like that will be beneficial. Just for me personally, I would prefer paid.
Yeah, I also like money, so I understand the question. And I would say if you have the opportunity to develop your skill, it's kind of like a side project, right? Think about it that way. If you can't by any means find a paid internship, think of it as a volunteering opportunity. Unfortunately, that's kind of where everything is heading. Not happy about it either, but I would say it's better than, sitting down on your couch and crying.
Thank you. What are some hard skills that are useful, especially when applying for these internships that are not necessarily taught in school, more specifically for computer science students?
I'd say it's definitely the soft skills. So whether it's like teamwork, leadership, communication, pretty much those ones that you develop outside of school. And like, I don't know how many times to emphasize this, but network, especially with your friends, make friends in school, and attend your classes, I don't know, be good kids.
For the hard skills, I do agree that it's soft skills that like we need to emphasize because a lot of the hard skills you're learning on the job in your internship. And they do appreciate, I know as a comp sci student, there's a lot of languages that we do use in school, whether it's taught to us or you're told to do the assignment in that language. You can add it on your resume, and just having a bunch of languages, that's what they'll like see, and they'll be like, oh, then if it's even a different language than one you don't know, since you know so many, like you'll be able to learn the other one more easily. But I would put more emphasis on the soft skills.
I totally agree with the soft skills, 100% very useful. Please learn how to use Linux. Again, computer science stereotype, but actually learn, at least to the basic level, how to use Linux, because there might be a class on it. I don't know if you're taking it, so please learn it.
Oh man, yeah, if I could add something real quick, is just Git, specifically with Git. There's a lot of tools out there, like the desktop version of Git, that can kind of help you push and pull your code. I would actually recommend using like the CLI, the command line interface. Getting used to actually like making pulls and pushes, whatever, using the tool that way. Once you actually start doing more complicated stuff with it, it starts actually becoming a lot easier once you understand those concepts, kind of coding it manually. But yeah, I would say use like the Git CLI. But yeah.
In the application process, do you guys see it is better to be like a jack of all trades, or is it better to like specialize like in one issue and try to become an expert in that?
Very good question. Horrible answer, it depends, right? If you're applying as a full stack developer, please try to vary your experience. But if you're applying for something super specific, for example, let's say, okay, I am applying for front end. I don't know any React. Big mistake, right? Please read the job description and try to tailor your exact kind of almost spiel to the interviewer based on the job description. Like if it's a non-technical interviewer, they quite literally have a piece of paper in front of them or a screen in front of them that has buzzwords and keywords from the job description. So if the job description is gigantic and various, you'll have to study gigantic berries. You'll have to be a jack of all trades. If the job description is super narrow and you're given the impression that what you will be doing is super narrow, try to specify.
I completely agree, but another thing I wanted to add, once you get more into your career with several internships, that was actually a question that my boss asked me at Ubisoft, because once you have more experience as a developer, it's up to you. It's like called a T-shaped model. It's best like to have like be specific in one area and then have a general knowledge of everything else. But it's also your choice as a developer if you want to have this like niche that you're really good at and everyone comes to you for that, or you're like generally like good at everything. So once you develop your career more, you can choose jobs based on what you want and then tailor your resume and application based on that too.
What do you recommend doing in order to find this career?
So obvious question or obvious answer rather is go to career fairs. Pull out your phone, open LinkedIn. There's like millions of them, right? They will almost always have a recruiter role in their profile description. So just, or let's say, what's a company you want to work at? Name one.
Let's say IBM for example.
All right, IBM. You open up LinkedIn, you go to the IBM page, you go to people, and then you begin using filters to find all of the human resources people at IBM. And then you filter by the region where you want to work. So let's say you want to work at IBM in Toronto. I'm going to go on LinkedIn, I'm going to go IBM, people, Toronto, Ontario, and then I'm going to try to search for the people that are in HR. And that's straight up how you find recruiters, right? It's really not that difficult. They're not hiding from you. So try to do it that way. But again, the best way is to go to career fairs. There's actually one coming up, the Fall Expo.
Okay, any more? I'm not sure how much related is this, but maybe you know the answer to the question. How much is your whole job has to be related to your program? So if you're doing, let's say, the state computer science or computer engineering, it only has to be something technical, but what's technical? Where are the borders of this specifically?
So when I first was applying to co-op internships, I thought that it had to have coding in it, like 100%. It depends. You're in computer science? Engineering. What specific engineering? Computer engineering? Okay. So I don't have as much knowledge on the computer engineering, but for computer science, it's more broad than you think. There's like data science, and then there's databases, which is also to do with data science, but there's just like a lot of categories. So the job portal on co-op, the one thing it does help you like by specifying what programs it relates to, and the requirement is that you have to apply to a job where your program is there. But as long as it covers something that you've done in like something that relates to computer science or computer engineering in some way, shape, or form, especially for your first job, it's fine. I don't know the exact like boundary of it, but like for example, I can't do some like dancing job as a computer science student, even though like I'd love to, but it's just not related for co-op specifically. So yeah, it'd be good to ask professors, and also the co-op office. They do. I know I was like shitting on the portal, but the co-op office is really responsive, so you can ask them on like specifics on that as well.
Anyone else? Come back.
It's kind of better internships opportunities in here.
Yes.
I don't really agree. Just with like, cause here there's so much government opportunities compared to Toronto.
Okay, first years here, once you're out of your second year, Toronto.
Yeah, I agree. Or Montreal.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Is getting your first internship in Toronto would be super, super tough.
And it's just expensive living there too. If you're like, I'm from Mississauga, so I just live with my parents if I was working there. But it is. There are some companies though. I know someone not at uOttaHack at McGill who got a civic engineering co-op internship in Toronto, and they paid for housing and everything. So in that sense, yeah, the jobs are like better there because they're paying for everything. But with like take advantage of FSWEP and stuff here because the government jobs here way more than Toronto and Montreal.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna end the questioning here. Can I first get a round of applause for Thank you all for coming. We have everyone stay seated. Do not get up. We have pizza. Do not stand up yet. We have pizza in the back, and also if you guys have more questions to ask the interns, you guys can come up to them and ask. They're gonna be walking around. This can be your intro to networking, and it's gonna be you practicing how to network. But yeah, it's just gonna be like pretty much gonna be walking around eating. When you go get your food, when you go line up, be very respectful about it. Be very demure. Don't run. Don't push. Be careful with this camera, especially that's in the middle lane. Please don't knock it over. Please be very careful. People numbers to us and go ahead.